Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our series of examples, working our way through the Python certification. In this episode, we are going to look at lambdas. A lambda is maybe familiar to you if you've dealt with other languages, and particularly if you go back to Lisp or Scheme or those Lisp-related kinds of languages. Lambdas are used constantly throughout. You also can see them in Java supports it, C# I think supports it, C++. And it is a slightly different way without getting too deep into the world of lambdas and lambda arithmetic and such. It is a different way to approach functions and definitions and being able to do some sort of operation on values. The simplest way you do a lambda is you're going to use the keyword lambda. You have a variable that this is basically your parameter. And then you have something that it does, that it returns. And then here, this is an example of actually calling it with a value. So it's actually, this one would be, if I call this add one, and gave it, let's just call it X. And then I do the return X plus 1. Oh, I didn't want to comment that out. Why doesn't it like that add 1? It's probably something stupid. Oh, function name should be lowercase. Okay, fine. Oh, and it just says it's okay. So anyways. So let's do print. I'll have to do a string. Add 1, 1. And then let's do the same thing. Let's do it this way. So in this case, did I balance those right? Yes. In this case, I'm going to come in and I'm going to call add 1. I'm going to send it the value of 1. So it comes up here and it says, okay, return 1 plus 1, which happens to be 2. Spoiler alert. This, it says, I'm going to give it a value and then I'm going to return that value plus 1. And so if I send it 1, notice I'm declaring it and calling it all at the same time in this case. And then I'm going to print the value. And if I go out there, we'll see that here I've printed those two. I've got those. Let's do it this way because we may end up not make it hard to follow. So let's do this. Print add 1, and this is going to be print this. Now we can also do do the same kind of thing as we can take this lambda and here. Now at this point we don't have a name for this, and we'll address that a little bit later. But like right now, if I try to call, I can't call this again. This lambda I just created, this is on the fly. It's not stored anywhere or anything like that. Now I can do, I can create it. Let me see how I want to do that. Let's create this one. So let's do X plus 2. And I can do I can do actually print. It's going to store it, so I can actually do underscore and send it a value, which is 2. And I think that's going to work for me. I think I'd do it that way. Let me make sure I can do that. And that happens to be because that'll only work in the interpreter. So I'm not going to bother with that right now. I am going to go back to this. So that's if you're doing the interpreter, you can actually see it, but it doesn't exist. Let's do this. Outside of, just right there. And of course, if I were to create another lambda, then I would immediately be screwing it up. What was I going to do? Here's what I do. and by well, I'd immediately overwrite it if I call another lambda. So this time I'm going to do. I was going to do it like this. So I want to do it. So I'm going to take that, and so I can also send multiple parameters in. And so now if I do 3, 2, somewhere in here, then we'll see here that, so I sent in 3 plus 2, it took those guys and it added them and returned them. Now I can also I can store these if I want to. So now I can come back and let's do this. It's going to be my lamb equals, and let's just, let's do this. This will be a multiplier just cuz. And then I can do print my lamb. Let's do 2 times 3. And we'll see here that I get 6. So I can also store off. If I want to, I can store it off, and then I just call it by using that variable name, and then send the parameter string or the list of parameters in as I need to. Now we can do this in a way that allows us to, a lot of times it allows us to write stuff that can do some sort of recursion or some sort of string of lambdas is fairly common, so that we would have stuff that gives us a pretty short way. For example, let me use, like, it's going to be I'm not going to write the guy out, but there is, if you go to, I think it's Scheme, it may be Lisp, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Lisp. They have a thing called Lambda, which basically takes a string and it returns basically the last word or last space in something, or it takes the last thing in a series, last thing in a list. I'm sorry, car is the first, and correct me, don't bother, I'm sorry, don't correct me if I'm wrong, this is just for purposes. And this would be last. And so what I could do is it gives a parameter and then sends out, and regardless, it just returns a string in this case. But now what I can do is I can do print, let me do it this way. Let's just do it this way. Let's do add and subtract. So what we want to do here is, let's do this, is what we can do is, and jump here, and so we can actually put these together. So we can do add, so we're going to add a value, add a value, add a value, subtract a value, and subtract a value. And then let's just do that to 1. So that's going to be 1, subtract 1 is 0, minus 1, plus 1 gets us to 0, 1, 2. So it should end up with 2. And then let's do result equals. Now this is a little bit contrived, but you've seen this. We've got situations where we have combined out functions, and so we can do that as we do here. And so we printed that out. We got 2 as our result. So we can actually combine lambdas. Now another thing that we can do is we can use variable arguments. And there are some things that there are functions out there that take variable arguments. So we can do it rather simply, or we can create one that does it. So if we wanted to add a series of numbers, then we can do a lambda that takes a variable number of arguments and then prints that out, and then sums them. So if we do print result 2, then we're going to see here that that's 6. 1 plus 2 plus 3. So we can use variable arguments. We can use keyword arguments if we wanted to do it. So we could do, let's see, what's a good one for this? And so that would be KW args. And then A equals 1, B equals 2. Oh, these need to be, those are not strings, those are values. So now I can just say that I've sent this stuff in. Let's make this result, well, we'll leave that result 2. And so here it's going to go through and it's going to grab the value, which is 1, 2, and 3. And I should still see 6. Oh, let's see. Let's see, I may not have built my array correctly. I missed an asterisk. So now if I do that, then I'm going to see that I get my 6 again. So I can either use args, which was the, let's do this. Let's bring that back in to make sure I don't lose it. And let's see, where did I have my prior one? Whoops, let's get that back there because I forgot. I didn't want that. There we go. So it's going to be just result 2. And then result 3. So make sure we've got those. So we've got a couple different ways we can build out our lambdas. And we have ways that they can be called. Now, the usefulness depends. You can do a lot of this stuff based on with functions as well. So it's and until you get too deep into it, I'm not sure that it isn't better to just use functions, particularly since we have we also have with functions now that I can do this. I can do it like that, and I can add these hints. So now I can have something that implies a little better what I'm dealing with, what I'm going to send and what I'm going to return. So now if I go back and do print add 1, I'm going to do a string. Well, if I just do print add 1 and I'm going to send it A, let's see what that does. This will be at the very back of it. And we'll see here, the first thing here is I can only concatenate a string. And then if I run it, can only concatenate a string here to string. So that's the same thing as now it looks like, you know, I'm running into this int. So it's basically to help people out and give something that's a little easier to read. Whereas lambdas can get like here, I mean, they're pretty simple, but they can get sort of complex to read. So once you start putting type hints and such in, that it just helps a little bit as far as reading. And then there's some other side effects that are pretty nice bonuses to have. I think that'll wrap this up for now. That's sort of where I wanted to go with lambdas. As far as certification, I don't expect you're going to see too much, but you will see a little bit of that. So it's good to understand the basics. And things like, actually, let's do one more just to note that, which probably doesn't need to be noted, but I could do my lam2, and I could add another parameter just as easy. And it'll still run to that. Oops, let's get rid of that. Okay, and so it's going to be that 24 there. Is it what? Because it's 2 times 3 times 4. So I can put any number of parameters, including a variable or even keyword related, and I can wheel and deal with it that way. And then it ends up being very similar to, as we saw up here, it's very similar to a function. So if you're comfortable with functions, lambdas are not going to be terribly difficult either. Just realize that that is creating a function type object, we'll call it, that you can pass around. So I can actually do this. And then now this is going to call that function. So I could actually dynamically, at some point I could actually dynamically create some functions and things like that. And it becomes pretty useful when you want to do, there's different tasks that's very useful for. That being said, probably gone a little longer than needed on this, but I want to play around with Lambdas a little bit. And this will be in the repository as always. And we'll come back next time and we'll dig into some other pieces of this, continuing looking at some classes and functions and some of the things that Python provides us. And until then, go out there, have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.